Hello, Neural Network listeners. It's your co-host, Vasu, and I hope you all are having a fantastic day. Today, we're joined by our guest, co-author of Decision-Driven Analytics and professor of marketing at University of Pennsylvania, Wharton School of Business, Dr. Puntoni.
Dr. Puntoni, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, guys. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm a professor of marketing. I work at the Wharton School. It's part of the University of Pennsylvania. And here I do research and teaching in the area of marketing, decision-making, and artificial intelligence. I teach a course called AI in Our Lives, which is a behavioral science course trying to teach students about the human impact of AI deployment for individuals, organizations, and society. And I do research in the area of consumer decision-making. I'm interested in a variety of topics within that scope, and perhaps that's what we're going to explore a little bit in this chat. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, that's awesome. Vasu and I are both interested in that intersection of AI and then behavior as well as business. So you're like the perfect professor to kind of talk with about interests. So to start off with looking at what led you to your current profession, what motivated you to pursue the fields that you're pursuing, such as like artificial intelligence, marketing, and behavioral science?
I did my undergraduate master in statistics, and then decided to make a turn towards decision science and consumer research in particular. And then for a long time, I studied consumer decision making in a variety of contexts. I was interested especially in topics related to globalization and identity. And then about maybe 12 years ago, I started reading about deep learning algorithms that all of a sudden was becoming popular in applications like self-driving cars and personal digital assistants. You have IBM launching Wharton. There were a bunch of things happening at the same time, building on the same type, broadly similar architecture. And I was just amazed that these things would work so well. And I thought, well, I think this is just the beginning. So I don't know where this is going, but we haven't seen anything yet. And so I decided that there would be probably a lot of implications for consumer decision-making, consumer well-being, consumer welfare, and basically for all of us. And I thought we ought to be studying, so I decided to pivot basically in my career and become, basically a researcher in the area of automation, AI, and consumer decision-making. So I don't design the algorithm. I'm not a computer scientist, and I would not be able to program this kind of stuff. But what I do instead is to study the impact of the algorithms after they've been developed and deployed. So this is more about how people experience these algorithms, how they perceive barriers to adoption, what are the outcomes for consumers, and so forth.
Yeah, I think it's really cool that you analyze how it really deploys into society and impacts like all of us through artificial intelligence and deep learning models that are continuously growing. And that actually reminds me, I remember hearing that you've taught in various locations ranging from UPenn now, the Netherlands in the past, and the United Kingdom. I was wondering if you could talk about some of the differences and similarities of academia in the United States compared to Europe.
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, indeed, I'm originally from Italy. I did my bachelor studies there, and then I moved to the UK for a PhD. At the end of that, I moved to Stockholm for a year, so the capital of Sweden. And I was following a girl, and she knew I was following her. It wasn't. And so we spent a year there, and then together we moved to the Netherlands, where I took on a faculty position at a university called Erasmus University of Rotterdam. And I was there a long time. I got tenured, I got promoted to full, and then became a head of department. And then, the Wharton School came asking me if I would join. The school at that point were interested in increasing their footprint in the AI space, and they were looking not only the algorithmic work, but also the impact work. And they found my work interesting, so it was a great opportunity to come and start building something here on the other side of the pond. So I had the opportunity to work at different institutions. I had a side appointment in the UK for many years. So in that sense, I have a good vantage point of how it is to be a student and an educator in all of these markets. I mean, from a point of view of the professor, largely the job is the same. We come to the office, we think of ideas, we write papers, and we show up to class, hopefully. And, and that's what it is. But you do observe some differences. And some of these differences, I think, are systemic, meaning there are really differences between these different education systems and cultures. Some of them, I think, are also related to the specific institutions that have had, they like to serve. And so if you think about the Netherlands as a publicly funded education system, students are essentially studying for free, or they pay, I think, about 2,000 for a master, 2,000 euros. So it's really very, very cheap. Of course, people have to pay for accommodation and for food. So it is an effort always to study. You're taking time off from work, it requires commitment, but not so much commitment, in fact. And so you do see that in positive and negatives. It's much more inclusive a system. Basically, most people with some will can study, and that is not true everywhere. And at the same time, you also have, not a lot of skin in the game. So you see a lot of students are a little bit kind of, not particularly focused on their academic. And that's not to say that you don't see that here in the United States too. But certainly when I compare students at an institution like Penn, where it is extremely difficult to be admitted, where it takes an enormous amount of talent and dedication to do so, I think you do see a very marked difference. I love teaching here. The students are brilliant. I mean, they're really brilliant. In the UK, it's a little bit in between, where the studying is actually quite expensive, but not quite on US scale, and where there is a proper admission process, but not quite on the US scale and so forth. So I would characterize it a bit as an in-between. In the end, I think a lot depends on the immediate colleagues and the resources that you have and what you're trying to achieve in your job. For me, research has always been very important. The Netherlands has been an incredible place for me to launch my career. Excellent place, wonderful quality of life. I very highly recommend it. So it could be a great, exciting place to be abroad for a while, and everybody speaks English, it's safe, it's fun, it's in the middle of Europe, it's great. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're both seniors right now, so we're applying to college, and one of the biggest parts of that is kind of like that hefty tuition that comes along with that. So having like that public education system where people are kind of it's a lot more easier to have access to knowledge. That's pretty nice. But like as you mentioned, yeah, like the schools here, like the quality of students is like really truly remarkable. I had the chance to do like a hackathon at Penn a couple weeks back, and yeah, like some of the kids in like computer science and like other fields are really, really good at their craft. So
Yeah,
yeah.
well, I mean, the basically here the university has the luxury of being able to select basically the brightest people on the planet. So I think you really see it when you go to class. Now, the advantage of a public education system is accessibility. It's that you end your degree without, huge debt, and quality of facilities and education is quite good because it's publicly funded, but to a much higher level than maybe publicly funded institutions in other places are. So I think it's not bad, but just to give you a sense, I was teaching a graduate class, so it was a master program, and my course had 315 people in the class. So that is, the small scale education. The undergraduate program would have between 500 and 1,000 people in a class. So you never get to talk to a professor, and it's basically you're studying on your own. People hardly go to class. I mean, it's a very different type of experience compared to classes here, for example, where we cap every class at 70, 75. I know the names of the students and so forth. It's a very different kind of experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I find it very interesting how there's such like a large amount of like knowledge of education, but at the same time, there's that duality of having that student and professor connection because of the immense amount of students inside that program. So I find that very interesting.
But I do want to make a pitch to your listeners who may be also seniors and thinking about college, and that is, do keep an open mind about opportunities that might not be the obvious ones. In that, if you have the luck of being able to gain admission at institutions that are premier, and so I think it does make a lot of sense to borrow a lot of money to get there and to study things that will be having a good return on investment in terms of the likely salary and career. But that's probably not true for everybody and for every career. And so for a lot of people may actually make a lot of sense to consider something like a degree in Europe, where even as a non-EU citizen, and by the way, many people have a EU passport through family, but if you don't, even the fees for foreign students are at where I was teaching was 24,000 a year. And okay, it might look like quite a lot of money, and certainly for people in the Netherlands was considered completely outrageous. Nobody would even think, I mean, it was the crazy thing to pay 20K for a year education. But of course, if you are going to compare it to a lot of other institutions in the US, it's actually pretty good value. So there might be, for some people, there might be actually nice opportunities to spend a period abroad, have a blast, travel, and maybe save a lot of money in the process. But I'm not saying that this is for everybody, but I think it's something that maybe too few people even think about it.
Yeah, for sure. There's like a bunch of great colleges in Europe that have really high levels of education while also having that accessibility that makes it kind of nice. More onto your research. So, would you say there's any particular projects that you're working or you're proud of that you've worked on in the past? You could share with listeners.
I'll be happy to share a brand new project. This is not even published. It's currently under review. And what we are looking at is that the socio-emotional impact of chatbots. And there's increasingly people, maybe especially young people, have very easy access to chatbots powered by large language models, which are able to produce interaction partners that are very, very realistic and very eerily realistic, in fact. So you may be familiar with the chatbot on Snapchat or with companion AI apps like Replica or others. And if even ChatGPT, who is prompted to be a helpful assistant, is not meant to be your friend, but it is quite amazing the kind of conversation you can have, especially for those of you who try the voice option for interaction modality. But say Pi, for example, very friendly chatbot. So there are many of these chatbots that are actually quite empathetic. They want to know about you, help you, listen to you. And so we were wondering, how do they make you feel? And so we have this set of randomized control trials where we have large samples of consumers, and these are non-clinical populations, so it's not people who are depressed or anything like that, just random people. And they are asked to participate in a study. The only thing they're told to do is that they need to spend at least 15 minutes talking to this chatbot that we programmed. And they go to this platform, they talk to the chatbot. There is no instruction about what to talk about, how to behave. They can do whatever they want. And after 15 minutes, they go back to the platform and answer a little survey. And in the survey, we ask them various questions, but the key question is about feelings of loneliness. And what we find is that even a short interaction with a chatbot is significant in alleviating feelings of loneliness. Actually works surprisingly well. And we compared the effect of chatbot. And by the way, we're using GPT-4, so OpenAI's API to do this. So it's basically one of the best models available, but it's pretty easy to access through the API. It's not a difficult thing to do. And what we do, we compare this chatbot with a bunch of control conditions in different studies to try to understand what is a good benchmark. In some studies, they do nothing, so they just answer the question as a feeling at the moment. In some studies, they watch YouTube videos, which in a pilot, we asked people, what do you do when you feel lonely? And most people said, I watch YouTube video. And well, I can tell you that's not a successful strategy. That doesn't seem to alleviate loneliness. But we also have them paired with strangers on a platform, and they talk to a human stranger. We find that chat was actually better. Of course, it would be different if you talk to a friend, but we didn't have that opportunity. And also, we have a loneliness epidemic. So the very fact that there is a loneliness epidemic is because people struggle to find friends to talk to. So that's probably not even a fair benchmark. And then I think maybe one of the coolest study, we manipulate between participants. We randomly assign people to a different condition where we vary the system prompts. And so in one condition, we tell GPT-4 to be dumb. Basically, they can hardly do anything, so it's not very useful. And we find that in that condition, there is no reduction in feeling of loneliness. Then in a second condition, we tell GPT to be a helpful assistant, a bit similar to the system prompt of ChatGPT. And so this chatbot is very helpful. It really helps you achieve the goal that you have, wants to help you, but it's not taking an interest in you. It's not exploring your feelings. It's not a friend, okay? It's not meant to be one. It's just an assistant. And then the third condition is a companion AI. It's a friend. They want you to feel good. They're there for you. Basically, that's the kind of prompt that we gave. And then what we find is that in the second condition, we do observe a significant reduction in loneliness, but the effect is small. So even the helpful assistant is helpful. So just having a fluent conversation seems to be doing something. But the effect is much larger in the companion AI condition, where we really observe a very big decrease in self-reported loneliness. And I think this is interesting for a number of reasons, but the main one is that these chatbots are going to be ubiquitous. We're going to see these agents doing a lot of stuff for us. We're going to see chatbots powering lots of interfaces and customer service functions and whatever. We'll have lots of productivity tools like ChatGPT that help us do all kinds of stuff. And then we'll have dedicated socially oriented applications of large language models like those companion AIs. And I think overall, we can start trying, think about how are we going to feel about all of this. We're just scratching the surface, right? We have people coming to the lab and do this simple interaction. We have one study where we ask them to come back 7 days in a row. So we can observe at least a longitudinal effect. It's a short run, but it's better than nothing. And what we find is that the effect is larger on the first day. So the novelty effect, I suppose. But the effect remains steady. And between day 2 and day 7, we observe effect of a similar magnitude. So at least this is not just a one-off. And yeah, I think what is the long-term consequences for our social relations? I think it could be very powerful, helping people feel better, cope with loneliness, maybe even providing some coaching and training so that they can be more effective in social situations. At the same time, maybe this chatbot will make it easier for people who find it hard to reach out to people to never do so because they can just now talk to their synthetic friends. So we don't know the longer term, but it's just very fascinating.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
absolutely.
awesome. Actually, I worked on a project a little bit similar to having like a companion AI in the past. I actually made a companion robot. Its name was Kevin, but it had like a little display that had like a small face that kind of just like gave you someone to talk to. It also used like a large language model. I think it was also GPT. And I used like a Raspberry Pi to power like this little electronic circuit so that you could just like talk to it like in a free-flowing conversation kind of style. And then it would reply back to you and then it'd have like the little face move. And yeah, it's a really cool concept having companion AIs to alleviate these feelings of loneliness, especially in the day where it's such a huge issue. Especially like I mean it's really in all demographics. Like it could be like teens, older people. Like my parents are always like talking about how when I move out, I'm an only child, so like when I move out to college, they always like talking about how they're gonna pass their days, like who they're gonna talk to and stuff. So yeah, having like these AIs to kind of be like those companions, those friends that you can just like have a conversation with
And a
is
nice example of your research. In fact, it's interesting because you are embedding a language model in a physical artifact, right? You have a robot. And
yeah.
it's interesting to think about how the embodiment component might contribute. We haven't done that. We only looked at digital interfaces, which I think is probably, through a phone or computer, the way that most people are going to access language models. But there might be something also about physicality, about having a materiality, basically an object that stands in front of you, moves or whatever. That's interesting to study too, actually.
Yeah, for sure. Like as you mentioned, like we're only like really just like scratching the surface with AI. Who knows like where we could go? We might just have like real actual people that we can talk to that are just language models in the very near future. So yeah, it's really cool to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. Dr. Puntoni, we were wondering about, so you're also the co-director of AI and analytics at Wharton. We were wondering if you talk about the work that you do there and how you help the program's endeavors with research.
Sure. I am a co-director of a center called AI at Wharton. We are four of us, is basically 2 people from marketing, 2 people from information systems. So it's an interesting multidisciplinary kind of team. And what we are trying to do is to help produce research. So we produce research ourselves. We stimulate research through funding. We also try to create community of researchers. So we organize conferences and try to bring people together that normally wouldn't meet because typically academics tend to hang out in fairly strict disciplinary circles. These are the conferences that marketing people go, and these are different from the conferences that finance people go or whatever. But trying to find a theme more on a substantive level, so basically generative AI is an example, and say, can we get together to talk about this? And so be there for the topic, not for the discipline. And I think that's, valuable. And then we do a lot of dissemination. So if you go on the AI at Wharton website, you can just Google it. And you find a podcast series, you find webinars, you find conferences. In fact, what we do is that we tape all the talks at the conference and we post everything online. So there's lots and lots of material that you can all access for free, mostly video, but also some text, interviews, material, articles, publications, all of that. And so for those of you interested in AI and AI in business in particular, and I think there's a lot of stuff there that you can just check out all for free. And so hopefully you find some of it useful.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that through looking at the website, I've seen the different research interest areas, whether it be looking at specifically commerce or data science, and how all of these fields really interact with one another to help bolster the initiatives of learning more about artificial intelligence in today's world. On that note, we'd like to thank you, Dr. Puntoni, for joining us on the Neural Network today. And that's Vasu, Arman, and Dr. Puntoni signing out.
Thank you, guys.